Hello and welcome to a special presentation of Sports Radio 104.3 The Fan's Top 10 All-Time Free Agent Signings in the history of the Denver Broncos. I'm Zach Bai. You probably think to yourself, how do you come up with a list like this? I'm glad you asked. We sat down with each of our hosts here at The Fan and had them grade out the 10 best signings in free agency in the history of this organization. And we averaged each list out and came up with this list. I hope you guys enjoy it, but before we get to the list, we asked each of our hosts what makes this time of year, free agency, so exciting.
When it comes to free agency, it's the opportunity for your team to get healthy overnight.
When you look at your roster, it gives fans hope for the next year, and it's players that have played, so they know that it's not going to be a 1 or 2 year learning curve for these guys like it is sometimes with a rookie. These guys are going to step in and produce right away.
Well, it's a chance to change your team overnight, and we've seen it with Broncos championship teams. And they went out and got Talib, T.J. Ward, Emmanuel Sanders, and DeMarcus Ware, and obviously they got Peyton Manning in free agency. So it's that lure of changing your team overnight.
Free agency has been such a gift to this franchise. I would argue that the 3 Super Bowl championships have been won on the backs of free agency.
Large parts of the Super Bowl 32 and 33 championship teams were built on free agency.
The Denver Broncos have been one of the best in NFL history at using free agency the right way. And you see that through their track record and building Super Bowl championships, even early on. In the early days of free agency, the Broncos were ahead of the game in terms of how to use the system and what players to add for the right price.
It certainly is a fun time of year. Before we move forward, let's make things clear. This list does not include college free agents. Sorry, Rod Smith. It does not include trades. Sorry, Champ Bailey. This is only veteran free agent signings. And before we bring you the list, let's find out a couple notable players that did not make the cut.
TJ Ward did not make the top 10 free agent list. Are you serious?
TJ Ward did not make the list of the top 10 because he wasn't here long enough. I think that's probably accurate. That's probably one you say, okay.
There better be some really good ones inside of the top 10 for him not to make it in the top 10. No-fly zone, a Super Bowl champion, and he brought a little nasty to that secondary.
I think he was a good complementary piece, but when I think of the great Broncos defense that won that Super Bowl in 2015, he would be pretty far down that list. And when he ended up being released by the Broncos, I didn't quite get all the fanfare of how big of a loss this was going to be.
TJ Ward should have made the top 10 because if you look at his impact and especially how beloved he was in that locker room for the Super Bowl 50 champion defense, it's something that Ward should have been acknowledged for on this list. Now, towards the end of the list, but TJ Ward should have definitely been in the top 10.
Yeah, he needed one more year. TJ would be right outside of my top 10. He was the soundtrack of that defense the year they won Super Bowl 50, but needed one more year. Getting cut last year of his contract, kind of not finishing it out the way he would have liked, that probably cost him a top 10 ranking.
He went to a Super Bowl. They won the Super Bowl. He was the leader of the no-fly zone. Yeah, that's ridiculous. He should be in there.
He would make my top 10. TJ Ward would be in my top 10 for one reason, one quote, and one reason and one quote only, and that's hit Brady prior to the AFC Championship game 2 years ago, back in 2015, January of 2016. I thought in many ways he set the tone for that game. He may not have been the best defensive player on the field that day or one of the best 2 or 3 defensive players, but I think he helped set the tone for Von Miller, for Malik Jackson, even for DeMarcus Ware. He would be in my top 10.
I'm not surprised TJ Ward didn't make it. There's way too many other more accomplished Broncos in front of TJ Ward. Considering the fact that John Elway identified a thumper to change the attitude defensively for the Denver Broncos defense. And TJ Ward spearheaded that. That's surprising, that's shocking to me.
John Lynch didn't make the top 10. He's in the Ring of Fame with the Broncos. How does he not make the top 10 if he's actually in the Ring of Fame? And he's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. They went to the AFC Championship. Wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. John Lynch has got to be in there.
John Lynch is a controversial one because people will say, well, okay, he gets in the Ring of Fame, but he was only here for a short time. So being outside the top 10 is a bit unusual, especially because of the impact he had when he was here. But John Lynch would not be in my top 10, and so I'm not surprised that he's not in this top 10.
Lynch was a really good player, but you know, I don't think of him as a true Bronco. I think of him as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. And while he was a good player here, I don't think he was a great player. Good free agent signing, but no, I wouldn't put him necessarily in my top 10 either.
He made the Ring of Fame, right? But didn't make the top 10 list. What did he play for 4 years? Several Pro Bowls, and some of those Pro Bowls, like I don't want to be disrespectful, but some of those Pro Bowls were on reputation. Had a couple of really outstanding years here. His first couple of years. John Lynch, one of the great. He's going to be a future Hall of Famer. One of the great players I've ever played against. Wish I could have played with him, but one of the great players I ever played against. A great guy too.
Not surprised that John Lynch did not make the list. I mean, I appreciate John Lynch as a player. I played against him for a number of years, but you know, his impact with Denver wasn't quite like it was when he was obviously with Tampa.
That's a little surprising because of the name. You know, his best career years are in Tampa Bay, but he was a Pro Bowler in Denver. I mean, he finished off what we believe will be a Hall of Fame career in Denver. Unfortunately, got a little short. You know, they didn't win a Super Bowl with John Lynch. It's just really, for him, it's just an issue of time spent here. If he had spent a couple more years, clearly he would have been on that list.
You know, when I played against John Lynch, when he was with the Denver Broncos, you always knew where John Lynch was. And he had that fear factor back there. If you went across the middle and you weren't prepared for it, he was going to try to take your head off. So he was that intimidating safety that obviously came here and created a standard here defensively. A little bit surprising there, no John Lynch in the top 10.
John Lynch did not make the top 10. I don't know what this top 10 list is if John Lynch didn't make it. He was a fantastic player and a great leader, and I'll never forget how important he was to this new scheme of defense that the Broncos rolled out, and they got beat by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship, but it was so unique because they basically covered down 10 guys on the line of scrimmage and had one safety, and John Lynch was one of those 10 guys near the line of scrimmage, and it was just a new style of defense that we hadn't seen around here in Denver, and it was good. I mean, the guy's on the ballot for the Hall of Fame, but it's not good enough for the top 10 list for the Broncos. This list has got to be unbelievable.
Howard Griffith is for the hardcore Broncos fans. Like, if you know how things were sprung back in the day with Terrell Davis and company, you would want him in, but he should be on an honorable mention list. So I'm not outraged that he's not in the top 10.
As a former linebacker who battled Howard Griffith twice a year, it's a shame that he's not on this list.
Howard Griffith should have made the top 10 of the list because he opened holes for a 2,000-yard rusher, and he was a starting fullback when fullbacks were important in the NFL, and was part of 2 Super Bowl championship teams and responsible for a lot of 1,000-yard rushers.
I bet most people wouldn't even realize Howard Griffith was acquired in free agency. He was always a sidecar to Terrell Davis, and he played fullback, a position that's like me. I'm okay with that.
In the pinch, he not only blocked, he ran it and particularly caught it in key situations.
In our system, your fullback is 3 yards closer to the line of scrimmage. So you don't have as much time to read it out. You've got to hit that hole right now. And so it's imperative for a fullback to really understand blocking schemes, understand what we're doing up front. So if he knows, hey, there's a double team here, and the odds are based on that defensive lineman's alignment, I'm gonna have to go inside that block or outside that block. And you've got to do that because you're closer to the line of scrimmage. That's a difficult task. So Howard Griffith was a great player, a great fullback for us, and a real difference maker when it came to, you know, TD's 1,700-yard season and 2,000-yard season. Howard was at the forefront of that.
Without Howard Griffith, there really is no Terrell Davis. I know it was a great offensive line. I know you had weapons outside which took the defense's pressure or eyes away from Terrell Davis, but Howard Griffith was a key part of that. I watch tape every day when I work out, and occasionally I watch tape of me as a Seahawk versus those Broncos and my battles against Howard Griffith, and those are some epic, epic battles.
Stoke didn't make the list? Oh no, so I'm gonna have to hear about this for 3 hours for the next year and a half.
Ah, man, that makes me hotter than a red pepper.
Well, he's gonna be hotter than a chili pepper, that guy.
What? No! Are you serious? I was just, who voted on this thing? I didn't make the top 10. Are you serious? Oh, that is such a big letdown. It hurts me. It hurts me. What idiots voted on this thing to start with?
Oh, I was surprised. Is he in the top 20? No. Stokley had so many big plays. Love Stoke.
I don't know how long Stoke was here, but you know, that was the Peyton Manning year. So it's really hard. Like, Peyton overshadows everybody. Stoke had a couple of great years here though too.
I just thought he was a cornerstone. That guy, I felt like when he came here in 07, he was a building block, a foundation piece to spring this organization forward to that Super Bowl championship, and no love, man. That guy, he always seems to be overlooked his whole career, and so while it hurts, it's not surprising and it's not shocking.
Brandon Stokley got kind of screwed, and here's why. That's a tricky one. That is funny, because if Stokley is not with the Broncos, who's Peyton gonna play catch with? You know, whose bedroom is Peyton gonna lay his head on? You know, what pillow is he gonna be on?
Brandon Stokley's got to be like top 5, because without Brandon Stokley, we don't get Peyton Manning.
I can't argue that. You know, I felt like I was a vital piece to making that guy and delivering that guy to Broncos country. How can you overlook that? And these are my guys in the studio, my teammates, and they overlook that and they keep me out of the top 10. I will not forgive, and I don't forget. Did I say that right?
Stoke belongs somewhere on the list. Maybe 10A, 10B, 10C.
You ready for the top 10?
No, I don't even want the top 10 anymore. It's over. It's a wrap. I don't care. Why do you think I dressed up? I dressed up all nice and shaved and got gel in my hair, all this, because I figured I would be a top 5. You know, I didn't think I'd be outside the top 10. This is humiliating, and I'm all dressed up. I'm done with this thing. I'm out, man. I don't want... No, I'm just kidding. All right, go ahead.
Wow, can't believe some of those names that did not make the list. It only brings up just how great this list is and who could possibly be on it. Tomorrow, we bring to you number 10 on the list of the biggest and best free agent signings in the history of the Denver Broncos. In the meantime, feel free to comment below where we missed, where we hit, and maybe even leave your own list. Get ready, tomorrow it starts. The 10th biggest free agent in the history of the Broncos. You can find out tomorrow.